The morning sun felt different that day. Keisha stood in front of her new school, Riverside High, clutching the straps of her backpack so tight her knuckles hurt. The building looked huge. All red brick and tall windows, nothing like her old school back in Oakland. She took a deep breath and walked through the front doors. Inside, the hallways buzzed with energy. Students rushed past her, laughing and shouting to friends they hadn't seen all summer. Keisha felt invisible and exposed at the same time. She pulled out the crumpled schedule from her pocket and tried to figure out where room 204 was supposed to be. The map they'd sent home made no sense now that she was actually here. "Excuse me," she said to a boy walking past. He glanced at her, then kept walking like she hadn't said anything at all. Keisha felt her stomach twist. Finally, she found her first class. English with Mrs. Patterson. She slipped into a seat near the back, hoping to blend in. The teacher seemed nice enough, talking about what they'd be reading this semester. But Keisha couldn't focus. She felt eyes on her. Quick glances from other students, whispers behind hands. She'd been the only black student in some classes before, but this felt different, heavier somehow. When the bell rang, Keisha gathered her things quickly. In the hallway, she checked her schedule again. Math was next, room 118. She started walking, trying to remember the turns she'd made earlier. That's when she first saw them. A group of 4 girls stood near the lockers, and they weren't trying to hide their stares. The one in the middle had long blonde hair pulled back in a perfect ponytail. She wore a cropped sweater that probably cost more than Keisha's whole outfit. The girl said something to her friends, and they all laughed while looking directly at Keisha. Keisha looked away and kept walking. Her mom's words echoed in her head from that morning. "Hold your head high, baby. You belong there just as much as anyone else." Easy to say, harder to feel when everyone's looking at you like you're from another planet. Math class was worse. The teacher, Mr. Reynolds, made her stand up and introduce herself to everyone. "We have a new student joining us today. Keisha, why don't you tell us a little about yourself?" Keisha stood up slowly, feeling 25 pairs of eyes lock onto her. I'm Keisha. I just moved here from Oakland." That's pretty much it. Oakland, California? That's quite a move. "What brings your family out here?" Mr. Reynolds asked, smiling like he was being friendly. "My mom got a job at the hospital. She's a nurse." Keisha wanted to sit down. She wanted to disappear. "Well, welcome to Riverside. I hope you'll like it here." He finally let her sit down. The girl next to her, a redhead with freckles, gave her a small smile. Keisha smiled back, feeling a tiny bit of relief. But when the redhead turned to whisper something to another student, they both looked at Keisha and the other girl shook her head slightly. The redhead's smile disappeared and she didn't look at Keisha again for the rest of class. Lunchtime was the hardest part. Keisha walked into the cafeteria and stopped dead. The room was massive and completely packed. Every table seemed to be claimed by groups who'd probably been sitting together since middle school. She grabbed a tray, got some pizza that looked like cardboard, and scanned the room for an empty seat. There. A table in the corner with just 2 kids sitting at one end. She headed over. "Is this seat okay?" she asked. They looked up at her. One of them shrugged. "It's a free country. Not exactly welcoming, but Keisha sat down anyway." She pulled out her phone and pretended to be busy, taking small bites of the terrible pizza. Around her, the cafeteria hummed with conversation and laughter. She'd never felt so alone in a room full of people. That's when she noticed them again. The blonde girl from earlier sat at a table right in the middle of the cafeteria, surrounded by her friends. They were all looking at Keisha now, not even trying to be subtle about it. The blonde said something, and the whole table erupted in laughter. Keisha's face burned. She knew they were talking about her. She just knew. She forced herself to finish eating, even though the food tasted like nothing. When the bell finally rang, she practically ran out of the cafeteria. The afternoon classes blurred together. History, biology, Spanish. In every class, she felt those stares, heard those whispers. Nobody talked to her directly, but nobody ignored her either. It was like she was some kind of exhibit at a museum. Look but don't touch. By the time the final bell rang, Keisha just wanted to go home. She went to her locker to grab her jacket and the textbook she'd been assigned. The hallway was chaos. Everyone rushing to leave or head to after-school activities. She was putting her combination into the lock when she heard footsteps behind her. Before she could turn around, someone bumped into her hard. Not an accidental brush. A solid shove that made her stumble forward into the locker. "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." a voice said, dripping with fake sweetness. "I didn't see you there." Keisha turned around. It was her. The blonde girl from the cafeteria, from the hallway that morning. Up close, Keisha could see her green eyes were cold despite the smile on her face. "It's okay," Keisha mumbled, even though it wasn't. "You're new, right? I'm Brittany." She didn't offer her hand or anything, just stood there with her 3 friends flanking her like bodyguards. "Yeah, I'm Keisha." "Keisha, that's an interesting name. Is it African or something?" Brittany tilted her head, still smiling that smile that didn't reach her eyes. "It's just a name," Keisha said quietly. "Well, Keisha, just a heads up. You're standing in front of my friend's locker. We've had these same lockers since freshman year, so..." Brittany gestured to the locker right next to Keisha's. "Oh, sorry. I didn't know." Keisha stepped aside quickly, grabbing her books. One of Brittany's friends, a girl with dark brown hair and a high bun, opened her locker slowly. She made a face. "Ugh, Brittany, it smells weird over here now." They all laughed. Not loud, crazy laughter, just these light, tinkling laughs that somehow felt meaner than if they'd been yelling. Keisha slammed her locker shut and turned to leave. But Brittany stepped slightly to the side, blocking her path. Not completely, just enough that Keisha had to squeeze past. "See you around, Keisha," Brittany called after her. Keisha walked as fast as she could without running. Her face felt hot, her eyes stung. She would not cry. She would not give them that. Outside, she found the buses lined up. Number 7. Her mom had written it on her schedule. She climbed on and found a seat by herself near the middle. As the bus pulled away from school, she finally let herself breathe. The ride home took 20 minutes through neighborhoods that still felt unfamiliar. Big houses with perfect lawns. Nothing like her old neighborhood where she knew every corner, every neighbor, every store. This place was clean and quiet and felt nothing like home. When she finally walked through the front door of their new apartment, she wanted to collapse. Their furniture still looked wrong here, like it didn't quite fit in these rooms. Boxes sat unpacked in corners. Her mom wouldn't be home for another 3 hours. Night shift at the hospital. Keisha dropped her backpack by the door and went to her room. She flopped onto her bed and stared at the ceiling. Her phone buzzed. A text from her best friend back in Oakland, Destiny. "How was it? Tell me everything." Keisha stared at the message. What could she even say? That she'd spent the whole day feeling like an outsider? That a girl named Brittany and her friends had already marked her as a target? That she'd eaten lunch basically alone in a cafeteria full of hundreds of kids? She typed back, "It was okay. Different. Miss you." 3 dots appeared immediately. "Miss you too." "Call me later?" "Yeah, maybe," Keisha replied, knowing she probably wouldn't. How could she explain this feeling to Destiny, who was probably having lunch right now with all their friends in their cafeteria, at their school? Keisha got up and went to the kitchen. She made herself a snack, cheese and crackers, and tried to focus on her homework, but the words in her history textbook kept blurring together. Her mind kept replaying the day. Brittany's fake sweet voice. Those laughs. The way that redhead in math had smiled at her and then turned away like she was nothing. At 7, her mom came home looking tired in her scrubs. "Hey, baby. How was your first day?" Keisha looked up from her homework spread across the kitchen table. Her mom's eyes were hopeful but exhausted. She'd worked so hard to get this job, to give them this opportunity. This move was supposed to be good for them. "It was fine," Keisha said, forcing a smile. "Just a lot to take in, you know? New school, new people. Did you make any friends?" Her mom started pulling things out of the fridge for dinner. "Not really, but it's only the first day. Takes time." The lies felt necessary. Her mom had enough to worry about. Her mom came over and kissed the top of her head. "That's my girl. I know it's hard starting over. But you're strong, Keisha. Stronger than you know." Keisha nodded, not trusting her voice. Later that night, lying in bed in the dark, Keisha let herself think about what she'd been avoiding all evening. Tomorrow she'd have to go back. And the day after that. And the day after that. This wasn't just one bad day she could forget about. This was her life now. She thought about Brittany and her friends, about the way they'd looked at her like she was less than, about the whispers and stares and that deliberate shove in the hallway. Her old school hadn't been perfect, but she'd had friends there. Real friends who knew her, who accepted her, who had her back. Here she was starting from 0. Less than 0, actually. Because she was starting from a place where people had already decided things about her before she'd even said a word. Keisha rolled over and hugged her pillow. Through her window, she could see the moon, the same moon that was shining over Oakland right now. She closed her eyes and tried to imagine she was back there, in her old room, in her old life. But when she opened her eyes, she was still here, still in this strange room in this strange town where nobody wanted her. And tomorrow she'd have to wake up and do it all over again. She finally fell asleep sometime after midnight, exhausted from trying to be strong all day. In her dreams, she was back at her old school, surrounded by friends who smiled real smiles and laughed real laughs. When her alarm went off the next morning, pulling her back to reality, it felt like waking up from the only good part of her day. 3 weeks had passed since Keisha's first day at Riverside High, and things hadn't gotten better. If anything, they'd gotten worse in ways she couldn't have imagined. It started small. Brittany and her friends would walk past Keisha in the hallway and make comments just loud enough for her to hear. "Did you see what she's wearing today?" one would say. "I know, right? Where does she even shop?" another would respond. Then they'd laugh, those same cruel laughs that made Keisha's skin crawl. In English class, Mrs. Patterson assigned a group project on Shakespeare. "I'll let you choose your own groups," she announced, and Keisha's stomach dropped. She already knew what would happen. Everyone immediately turned to their friends, forming groups of 4 in seconds. Keisha sat frozen at her desk, watching the room pair off around her. She was the odd one out. Always the odd one out. "All right, looks like we have one group that needs a 4th member," Mrs. Patterson said, scanning the room. Her eyes landed on Brittany's group. "Brittany, your group can take Keisha." The look on Brittany's face said everything. Pure annoyance mixed with disgust. "Mrs. Patterson, we actually work better as a group of 3. Could we maybe just do extra work instead?" "Nonsense. 4 heads are better than 3. Keisha, you'll join Brittany, Ashley, and Vanessa. I expect great things from all of you." Keisha gathered her things and moved to their table. None of them looked at her. Brittany pulled out her phone and started typing. Ashley, the girl with the high bun, rolled her eyes. Vanessa, who had been quiet that first day in the hallway, just stared at her notebook. "So, what part of the project should I work on?" Keisha asked quietly. Brittany didn't look up from her phone. "We've got it covered. Just put your name on it when we're done. But I want to help. I actually like Shakespeare." Now Brittany looked up, her green eyes cold. "Look, we already know how we work together. We don't need you messing up our grade. Just stay out of it and everyone will be happy." "But that's not fair," Mrs. Patterson said. "Mrs. Patterson isn't in this group." "We are." Brittany's voice had an edge now. "Unless you want to tell the teacher and be even more of a problem than you already are." Keisha swallowed hard and didn't say anything else for the rest of class. When the bell rang, she quickly gathered her stuff and left while they stayed behind, probably planning the whole project without her. The social media stuff started the next week. Keisha didn't have a lot of apps. Just the basics. But Destiny back in Oakland sent her a screenshot one night. Is this about you?" It was an account called Riverside Rejects with a profile picture of a garbage can. The latest post was a photo of Keisha from the cafeteria, taken without her knowing. Someone had photoshopped her face onto a picture of a monkey. The caption read, "When you're trying to blend in but you stick out like a sore thumb, go back to the zoo." Keisha felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. The post had 37 likes. 37 people at her school had seen this and thought it was funny. Her hands shook as she reported the account, but a new one popped up the next day. Same kind of content. Different name. Riverside Truth Tellers this time. More photos of her, always with cruel captions. One showed her eating lunch alone with the text, "Nobody wants to catch whatever she has." She stopped eating in the cafeteria after that. Instead, she'd take her lunch to the library and eat quickly in a corner behind the reference books where nobody went. The librarian, Mr. Chen, noticed after a few days. "You know, the library is for studying, not for eating," he said, but his voice wasn't mean. "Just matter of fact, I'm sorry. I'll stop." Keisha started packing up her sandwich. He held up a hand. "I didn't say you had to leave. Just keep it neat, okay? And if anyone asks, you're doing research for a project." Keisha nodded, grateful for this one small kindness. But even the library couldn't protect her from everything. In gym class, things got physical. They were playing volleyball, and Keisha was actually pretty good at it. She'd played on a recreational team back in Oakland. When she served an ace that scored a point for her team, she felt a flash of something like happiness. It didn't last long. The next rotation, Brittany was directly across the net from her. When the ball came to Keisha's side, she set it up perfectly. But as she jumped to spike it, Brittany moved forward at the same time. Not to block the ball, to block Keisha. Their bodies collided, and Keisha felt Brittany's foot hook behind her ankle. She fell hard, landing on her right wrist to break her fall. Pain shot up her arm, sharp and immediate. "Oh my God, are you okay?" Brittany's voice was loud, concerned, performative. "I'm so sorry. I was trying to get the ball." Coach Williams blew her whistle and jogged over. "What happened?" "We both went for the ball at the same time," Brittany explained, her face the picture of innocent concern. "It was an accident. I feel terrible." Keisha cradled her wrist, tears stinging her eyes from the pain. She wanted to scream that it wasn't an accident, that Brittany had done it on purpose. But what proof did she have? And who would believe her over Brittany, who was already helping her up with fake gentleness? "Can you move it?" Coach Williams asked. Keisha rotated her wrist slowly. "It hurt, but it wasn't broken." "Yeah, I think so." "Good, walk it off. Get some ice from the nurse if you need it." "Brittany, be more careful. Everyone else, let's keep playing, that was it. No consequences. No investigation. Just walk it off like she hadn't just been deliberately hurt." In the locker room after class, Keisha changed quickly, trying to ignore the throbbing in her wrist. Ashley and Vanessa were nearby, talking in low voices. "Did you see her fall?" Ashley snickered. "So dramatic." "Brittany barely touched her," Vanessa agreed. "She's probably going to try to get Brittany in trouble now." They weren't even trying to whisper. They wanted Keisha to hear. She grabbed her bag and left without saying a word. What was the point? Nobody would listen anyway. Her grades started slipping, not because she didn't understand the work, but because it was hard to focus when you spent every moment at school just trying to survive. Her math teacher, Mr. Reynolds, kept her after class one day. "Keisha, your last 3 quiz scores have been below average. Is everything all right? Do you need extra help with the material?" She wanted to tell him everything. About Brittany and her friends. About the social media accounts. About eating lunch alone in the library. About the constant comments and stares and the way nobody would sit next to her unless forced to. But what came out was, "I'm fine. Just adjusting still. I'll do better." Mr. Reynolds looked at her for a long moment like he was trying to decide whether to push harder. Finally he nodded. "All right. But my door is always open if you need help. With math or anything else." Keisha appreciated the gesture, but she didn't believe it would change anything. Adults said things like that all the time, but when it came down to it, they never really wanted to deal with the messy, complicated truth. The Shakespeare project came due, and just like Brittany promised, they'd done the whole thing without Keisha. They presented it in class, a slideshow about Othello that was actually pretty good. When Mrs. Patterson asked Keisha what her contribution was, Brittany jumped in. "Oh, Keisha helped with the research phase. Right, Keisha?" What could she say? That they'd frozen her out completely? That she'd tried to help and been told to stay away? With Brittany's sweet smile and the teacher's expectant look, Keisha just nodded. They got an A. Keisha's name was on it, but it felt like a lie. At home, her mom was working longer hours, picking up extra shifts to help pay for the apartment and everything that came with the move. They barely saw each other anymore. Keisha would leave for school before her mom woke up from sleeping after a night shift, and her mom would leave for work before Keisha got home from school. They communicated through notes left on the kitchen counter. "Leftover pasta in the fridge. Love you, baby." And Keisha's responses, "Thanks, Mom. Love you too." One Saturday, when they were both actually home at the same time, her mom made breakfast. Pancakes, bacon, eggs, the works. They sat across from each other at their small kitchen table, and Keisha tried to act normal. "Happy?" "Fine. So tell me about school," her mom said, pouring syrup on her pancakes. "You never talk about it anymore. Made any friends yet?" Keisha pushed eggs around her plate. "Not really. Everyone's pretty cliquey, you know? They've all known each other forever. What about that group project you mentioned? The Shakespeare one? How'd that go?" "Fine, we got an A. That's wonderful, see? You're doing great." Her mom smiled, relieved. She wanted so badly for this move to be working out. Keisha forced herself to smile back. "Yeah, it's getting better." The lie sat heavy in her stomach, mixing with the pancakes. That Monday, things escalated again. Someone had put something in Keisha's locker. She opened it to find a printed picture of herself with racist slurs written all over it. Her hands shook as she crumpled it up quickly, looking around to see if anyone was watching. A few students nearby were smirking, but she couldn't tell who'd done it. She threw it away in the bathroom trash can and stood at the sink, gripping the edge of the counter. Her reflection stared back at her. She barely recognized herself anymore. Her eyes looked tired, defeated. This wasn't the girl who'd walked through Riverside's doors 5 weeks ago with hope and determination. "You okay?" a voice asked. Keisha turned. A girl stood by the door, someone she'd seen around but never talked to. She had short black hair and wore a band t-shirt. "I'm fine," Keisha said automatically. The girl walked to the sink next to her and washed her hands. "I saw what was in your locker." "That's messed up," Keisha's throat tightened. Someone had seen. Someone knew. "Yeah, well, whatever. Brittany and her friends are the worst. They did something similar to a girl last year until she transferred schools." Keisha looked at her. "Really?" "Yeah, they're bullies. Everyone knows it, but nobody does anything about it because Brittany's dad donates a lot of money to the school." The girl dried her hands. "I'm Devin, by the way." "Keisha, I know. Look, if you ever want someone to sit with at lunch or whatever, I'm usually in the courtyard. Just, thought I'd offer." Before Keisha could respond, Devin left. The bathroom door swung shut behind her. It was the first genuinely kind thing anyone at Riverside had done for Keisha. And somehow that small gesture made everything feel worse, because it meant Devin could see what was happening, which meant other people could see it too. They just chose not to care. That week in biology, they had to do lab work with partners. The teacher assigned pairs, and Keisha ended up with a quiet boy named Tyler, who barely said 2 words to her. They were supposed to be looking at cells under a microscope and drawing what they saw. Tyler did all the work while Keisha stood there awkwardly. When they had to write up their observations, he pushed the paper toward her. "You can write it." "My handwriting sucks." It wasn't much, but at least he wasn't actively mean to her. Keisha took that as a win. During the lab, Brittany's voice carried from across the room. "Can you believe she actually thought we'd let her do part of our English project? Like we'd risk our grades on someone from Oakland?" Her lab partner Ashley laughed. "I know. She's probably never even read Shakespeare before." The teacher was too focused on helping another group to notice, or maybe she heard and chose to ignore it. Either way, nobody said anything. Keisha kept her head down and wrote up their lab observations with shaking hands. Tyler didn't acknowledge the comments, but she saw him glance at Brittany's table with a frown. After class, Keisha walked quickly to her locker. She just wanted to get through the day, get home, be alone where nobody could say anything or look at her or make her feel like she was less than human. But Brittany was waiting by Keisha's locker with Ashley and Vanessa. All 3 of them, like they'd planned it. "Hey, Keisha," Brittany said in that fake sweet voice. "We need to talk to you about something." Keisha's heart raced. "What?" "We heard you were talking about us, saying we didn't let you work on the English project." "I didn't say anything to anyone." "Really?" "Because Mrs. Patterson pulled us aside and asked why you didn't seem involved in the presentation. Someone must have said something." Brittany stepped closer. "Was it you?" "Mrs. Patterson asked me directly what I did. I just said I helped with research like you told me to say." "You better not be trying to cause problems for us," Ashley added, crossing her arms. "We were nice enough to let you put your name on our project." "You should be grateful." Vanessa, who rarely spoke, finally chimed in. "Nobody here likes you. You should probably just keep your head down and stay out of everyone's way." They weren't yelling, weren't even raising their voices, but the threat was clear. Stay quiet, stay small, don't make waves. Then they walked away, leaving Keisha standing alone in the hallway with her heart pounding and tears threatening to fall. She made it through the rest of the day on autopilot. In Spanish class, she stared at the conjugation charts without seeing them. In history, she took notes but couldn't have said what they were about. Her wrist still ached from gym class days ago, a constant reminder of how far Brittany was willing to go. When she finally got on the bus home, she sat in her usual seat and pulled out her phone. There was a text from Destiny. "Miss your face. Video call tonight?" Keisha stared at the message. How could she video call Destiny and pretend everything was fine? Destiny would see right through her. They'd been best friends since 3rd grade. She'd know something was wrong. "Can't tonight. Lots of homework," Keisha typed back. "Okay. Tomorrow then?" "Maybe. I'll let you know." She put her phone away and looked out the window as the bus drove through neighborhoods where she didn't belong. Where nobody wanted her. where every day felt like a battle she was slowly losing. When she got home to their empty apartment, Keisha dropped her backpack by the door and went straight to her room. She lay on her bed and stared at the ceiling, trying to figure out how she was going to survive the rest of the school year. 5 weeks down, 30 more to go. It felt impossible. The breaking point came on a Tuesday afternoon in late October. Keisha had been at Riverside High for almost 2 months now, and every day felt like walking through a minefield. She'd learned to keep her head down, to move quickly through the hallways, to make herself as invisible as possible. It wasn't working. That morning started like any other terrible day. Keisha got to school early, hoping to avoid the crowds. She went straight to her locker, grabbed what she needed for first period, and headed to class. In English, Mrs. Patterson was handing back essays they'd written about Romeo and Juliet. When Keisha got her paper back, there was a C- at the top. Her stomach dropped. She'd worked hard on that essay, stayed up late revising it. She flipped through the pages looking for comments that would explain the grade. At the bottom of the last page, Mrs. Patterson had written, "Your ideas are good, but the writing feels disconnected. Did you have someone help you with this? Please see me after class." Keisha's face burned. She knew exactly what that meant. Mrs. Patterson thought she'd cheated, that she couldn't possibly write well enough to deserve a better grade. After class, Keisha approached the teacher's desk slowly. Mrs. Patterson looked up with a concerned expression that made Keisha's stomach twist even more. "Keisha, I wanted to talk to you about your essay. Some of the phrasing seemed quite advanced for a 10th grader. Did you use any outside help?" "No, ma'am. I wrote it myself." Keisha's voice came out smaller than she wanted. "It's just that your in-class writing has been much more basic. This essay seemed like a different writing level entirely. I spent a lot of time on it. I revised it like 5 times. Keisha felt tears building behind her eyes. "I promise I didn't cheat." Mrs. Patterson studied her for a long moment. "All right, I believe you. But I'd like to see more consistency in your work going forward. Maybe come in for some extra help." Keisha nodded and left quickly, clutching her essay. In the hallway, she heard Brittany's voice behind her. "Heard you got called out for cheating in English. Did you really think nobody would notice?" Keisha kept walking, but Brittany followed. "I mean, it's pretty obvious you're not smart enough to write a good essay on your own. You probably had someone from your old school do it for you." "I didn't cheat," Keisha said, still not turning around. "Sure you didn't." Brittany's voice was full of mock sympathy. "It's okay. We all know you don't belong here anyway." Keisha finally turned around. "Why are you doing this?" "What did I ever do to you?" Brittany's face changed. The fake sweetness dropped away, replaced by something cold and hard. "You exist. That's enough. This school was fine before you showed up." Ashley and Vanessa had appeared beside Brittany now, forming a wall across the hallway. Other students moved around them, heads down, nobody willing to intervene. "Just leave me alone," Keisha said, her voice shaking. "Or what? You'll tell on us? Go ahead. See what happens." Brittany smiled. "My dad's on the school board. Your mom's just a nurse. Who do you think they'll believe?" Keisha pushed past them and headed to her next class. Behind her, she heard them laughing. The day got worse. In the cafeteria during lunch, Keisha had decided to try eating there again instead of hiding in the library. Maybe if she acted normal, things would get better. Maybe if she stopped running, they'd get bored and move on to someone else. She was wrong. She'd just sat down at an empty table near the windows when Brittany's group walked past. Vanessa was carrying a full tray, and as she passed Keisha's table, she stumbled. Her chocolate milk tipped over, spilling directly onto Keisha's lap. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," Vanessa gasped, but her eyes were bright with barely contained laughter. The cold milk soaked through Keisha's jeans immediately. She jumped up, but the damage was done. Students at nearby tables had turned to look. Some were laughing. Others quickly looked away. "I'm such a klutz," Vanessa continued, grabbing napkins and making a show of trying to help. "Here, don't touch me." Keisha backed away, milk dripping down her legs. A lunch monitor finally noticed the commotion and came over. "What happened here?" "Total accident," Brittany explained before anyone else could speak. Vanessa tripped. "She feels terrible about it." "I really do," Vanessa added, her face the picture of concern. "Is there anything I can do?" The monitor looked at Keisha. "Do you need to go to the nurse's office? Get cleaned up?" Keisha nodded, not trusting her voice. She grabbed her backpack and walked out of the cafeteria. trying to ignore the whispers and stares. Her jeans were soaked, sticky, and she smelled like chocolate milk. She had 3 more classes to get through. In the bathroom, she tried to clean up as best she could. The jeans were dark enough that the stain didn't show too badly, but they were still damp and uncomfortable. She stood at the sink, fighting back tears. The door opened. It was Devin, the girl from a few weeks ago. "Hey, I saw what happened in there. That was messed up." "It was an accident," Keisha said automatically, even though they both knew it wasn't. "Right. Just like everything else that's happened to you has been an accident." Devin leaned against the wall. "Why don't you report them?" "To who? Nobody cares. And Brittany's dad is on the school board, so even if I did, nothing would happen." "That's probably true," Devin admitted. "This school protects people like Brittany, but you shouldn't have to deal with this alone." "I'm fine." The lie was so automatic now, Keisha barely thought about it. "You're not fine, but I get it. Sometimes it's easier to pretend." Devin pushed off the wall. "Offer still stands if you want to sit with me at lunch. I'm usually outside by the oak tree." She left before Keisha could respond. Keisha looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were red from holding back tears. Her jeans were damp and uncomfortable. Her shirt had milk spots on it too. She looked exactly how she felt, defeated. The afternoon was a blur. Keisha couldn't focus in any of her classes. In history, the teacher asked her a question about the Civil War and she had no idea what he'd said. In Spanish, she completely blanked on a vocabulary quiz she'd studied for. By the time gym class rolled around, the last period of the day, Keisha just wanted to disappear. They were doing volleyball again and her stomach dropped. After what happened last time with Brittany deliberately tripping her, the thought of being on the court made her anxious. "All right, let's split into teams," Coach Williams called out. "Captains are Brittany and Jackson. Start picking." Of course, Brittany was a captain. Keisha stood with the group of students waiting to be chosen, knowing she'd be picked last. She always was. One by one, students joined teams. Keisha watched as the group got smaller and smaller. Finally, it was just her and another kid who was clearly terrible at sports. "I guess we'll take Keisha," Brittany said with an exaggerated sigh. "Come on." Keisha joined Brittany's team, positioning herself in the back row where she'd hopefully touch the ball as little as possible. But luck wasn't on her side. The first serve came right to her. She bumped it up, actually setting up a decent play. One of her teammates spiked it over the net for a point. "Nice set," the girl next to her said quietly. For one moment, Keisha felt almost normal. Like she was just playing volleyball, not navigating a social war zone. Then it was time to rotate. Keisha moved to the front row, directly across from Brittany now. The ball was in play, bouncing back and forth over the net. Then someone on the other team hit it high toward Keisha's side. She moved to get it, but so did Brittany. They were both going for the same ball. Keisha jumped, and that's when everything went wrong. Brittany didn't go for the ball at all. Instead, she shoved Keisha hard in the chest. With both feet off the ground, Keisha had no way to balance herself. She fell backward, landing hard on the gym floor. But the gym floor wasn't flat where she landed. There was a slight incline leading up to the stage area, 3 shallow steps. Keisha's momentum carried her backward, and she tumbled down those steps, her body hitting each one before she crashed at the bottom. Pain exploded in her shoulder where she'd landed. Her head had smacked against the floor. Everything spun. Oh my God. Someone screamed. Suddenly there were people around her. Coach Williams was there, kneeling beside her. "Don't move." "Can you hear me, Keisha?" She could hear, but everything sounded far away. Her shoulder throbbed. When she tried to lift her arm, sharp pain made her gasp. "What happened?" Coach Williams demanded, looking up at the students. "We both went for the ball," Brittany said quickly. She jumped and lost her balance. "I tried to catch her, but that's not what happened." A voice cut through the chaos. Brittany pushed her. "I saw it." Keisha turned her head, trying to see who had spoken. It was Devin. She stood at the edge of the crowd, her face set and determined. "That's not true," Brittany protested. "It was an accident. Everyone saw." "I saw you push her," Devin insisted. "On purpose." "She's lying," Ashley jumped in. Brittany was trying to help. "This girl just has it out for us." Coach Williams looked between them, clearly unsure who to believe. Did anyone else see what happened? Silence. At least 20 students had witnessed it, and nobody said a word. They all looked away, studied their shoes, suddenly found the ceiling fascinating. "Exactly," Brittany said. "It was an accident." I would never hurt someone on purpose. The school nurse arrived with an ice pack. She helped Keisha sit up slowly. The movement made her shoulder scream with pain. She definitely hurt something. Can you stand? The nurse asked gently. With help, Keisha got to her feet. Her shoulder hung at a weird angle, and moving it even a little bit made her want to cry. The nurse examined it carefully. I think you might have dislocated it, or at least severely injured it. We need to call your mother and get you to the hospital. My mom's at work, Keisha said quietly. She's a nurse at City Hospital. I'll call her. Come on, let's get you to my office. As the nurse led her away, Keisha caught Devon's eye. Devon looked angry and frustrated. She'd tried to help and it hadn't mattered. Nobody believed her because nobody wanted to believe Brittany was capable of doing something so cruel. In the nurse's office, Keisha sat on the examination table while the nurse called her mom. Through the frosted glass window in the door, she could see Coach Williams standing outside with Brittany. They were talking and Brittany was crying now, actual tears running down her face, playing the role of the innocent victim perfectly. 20 minutes later, Keisha's mom burst through the door, still in her scrubs from work. Her face was a mixture of worry and anger. Baby, are you okay? What happened? The dam finally broke. All the tears Keisha had been holding back for 2 months came flooding out. She told her mom everything. The bullying, the comments, the social media accounts, the way Brittany and her friends had made her life hell since the first day, the milk incident at lunch, and finally, what just happened in gym class. Her mom listened, her face growing darker with each detail. When Keisha finished, her mom turned to the nurse. And what is the school doing about this? Because my daughter just told me she's been bullied for 2 months, and it escalated to physical assault today. The nurse looked uncomfortable. I'll need to get the principal involved. But from what I understand, it was an accident during volleyball. That's not what my daughter just told me. That's not what another student witnessed. Mrs. Thompson, I understand you're upset, but upset? Her mom's voice rose. My daughter's injured. She's been harassed for months. And you're telling me it's all just accidents? The door opened and Principal Hayes walked in. He was a tall man with gray hair and an expression that said he'd rather be anywhere else. Mrs. Thompson, I'm Principal Hayes. I understand there's been an incident. Why don't we go to my office and discuss this? We're going to the hospital first, her mom said firmly. My daughter needs medical attention. But yes, we'll be talking. We'll be talking a lot. At the hospital, X-rays showed that Keisha's shoulder was badly bruised and strained but not dislocated. She'd have to wear a sling for a few weeks and do physical therapy. The doctor gave her pain medication and instructions for care. In the car on the way home, her mom drove in silence for a while. Finally, she spoke. Why didn't you tell me? Any of it? You were working so hard. You were so tired all the time. I didn't want to make things harder for you. Her mom pulled into a parking lot and stopped the car. She turned to face Keisha, tears in her eyes. Baby, nothing is more important to me than you. Nothing. Not this job, not this apartment, not anything. Do you understand that? Keisha nodded, crying again. We moved here because I thought it would be better for us. Better schools, better opportunities. But if this is what better looks like, we'll figure something else out. I don't want you to quit your job because of me. This isn't on you. This is on that school for allowing it to happen. And I promise you, I'm not letting this go. Her mom's jaw set in that determined way that meant she was done playing nice. We're going back to that school tomorrow, and we're going to make sure everyone knows what happened. That night, Keisha lay in bed unable to sleep. Her shoulder ached despite the pain medication. But worse than the physical pain was knowing she had to go back to that school, face Brittany and her friends again, deal with the whispers and stares. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I'm sorry nobody else spoke up today. They're all scared of Brittany. But I know what I saw and I'm not backing down. Devon Keisha stared at the message for a long time. One person, out of an entire school, one person was willing to stand up for her. It wasn't much. But after 2 months of feeling completely alone, it was something. She texted back. Thank you. She finally fell asleep around midnight, exhausted from pain and crying. Tomorrow would bring another battle, but at least this time she wouldn't be fighting it completely alone. Her mom knew the truth now, and Devon had proven that not everyone at Riverside was willing to look the other way. It wasn't enough to fix everything, but it was a start. The next morning, Keisha's mom took the day off work. They drove to Riverside High together in silence. Keisha's shoulder still throbbing in its sling despite the pain medication. Her mom had barely slept. Keisha could tell by the dark circles under her eyes and the way she gripped the steering wheel. Principal Hayes had agreed to meet with them at 8 o'clock, before classes started. When they walked into his office, he was already there, along with Coach Williams and someone Keisha didn't recognize. A woman in a sharp blue suit with a folder in front of her. "Mrs. Thompson, Keisha, please sit down." Principal Hayes gestured to the chairs across from his desk. "This is Mrs. Bradley, our district student services coordinator. Given the seriousness of the incident, I thought she should be present." Keisha's mom didn't sit right away. "The seriousness of the incident? You mean the assault on my daughter? Because let's be clear about what happened yesterday." Principal Hayes shifted in his seat. "Mrs. Thompson, I understand you're upset. But we've spoken to several witnesses, and the consensus is that this was an unfortunate accident during gym class." "An accident." Her mom's voice was flat. "My daughter told me there was a witness who saw Brittany Crawford push her deliberately." "Where is that witness?" "Devin Mitchell did make that claim," Mrs. Bradley said, opening her folder. "However, she was the only one out of 23 students who reported seeing it that way. Everyone else, including the gym teacher, said it appeared to be an accident. So you're choosing not to believe the one person willing to tell the truth?" Keisha's mom leaned forward. "And what about everything else? The harassment? The social media accounts? The milk spilled on her at lunch? The way she's been excluded and tormented for 2 months?" Coach Williams finally spoke up. "Mrs. Thompson, kids can be cliquish. That's normal. It doesn't mean—" "Don't you dare tell me what's normal." Her mom cut her off. "My daughter has been eating lunch alone in the library because she's afraid of being humiliated in the cafeteria. She's been called names, had racist pictures posted online, been deliberately excluded from group work, and yesterday, whether you believe it or not, she was pushed down a flight of steps and seriously injured. That's not normal teenage behavior. That's bullying." Principal Hayes folded his hands on his desk. "These are serious accusations. Do you have proof of these social media accounts? Screenshots, perhaps?" Keisha pulled out her phone with her good hand. She'd saved some of the posts before the accounts got taken down and popped back up under new names. She showed them the pictures, the cruel captions, the racist imagery. Mrs. Bradley examined the phone, her expression unreadable. "These accounts have been reported?" "Multiple times," Keisha said quietly. "They just make new ones. And you're certain students from this school created them?" "The posts are about things that happen at school. They use photos taken at school." "Who else would it be?" Principal Hayes cleared his throat. "Even if these accounts were created by our students, we can't control what happens on social media outside of school hours. But you can control what happens inside your building." Keisha's mom countered. "You can investigate. You can take action. You can protect students who are being targeted. We take all allegations of bullying seriously," Mrs. Bradley said in a rehearsed tone. "We'll look into this further. In the meantime, perhaps we can arrange for Keisha to meet with our school counselor. Sometimes students who are having trouble adjusting. My daughter doesn't need counseling because she can't adjust. She needs you to stop the students who are making her life hell." Her mom stood up. "I want a formal investigation. I want Brittany Crawford and her friends interviewed separately. I want consequences." Principal Hayes also stood. "Mrs. Thompson, the Crawford family has been part of this community for generations. Mr. Crawford is on the school board. These are serious accusations you're making against his daughter. I don't care if he's the president. His daughter hurt mine. What I'm trying to say is that we need to be very careful about how we proceed. We don't want to damage any student's reputation without solid evidence." Keisha felt her mom go very still beside her. When she spoke again, her voice was dangerously quiet. "You're more worried about protecting a bully's reputation than protecting my daughter's safety. Is that what you're telling me?" "That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying we need to follow proper procedures. Then follow them, investigate, interview witnesses, check the school's security cameras. Do your job." Her mom put her hand gently on Keisha's good shoulder. "And until you do, my daughter won't be coming back to school. She'll be out on medical leave until her shoulder heals. That gives you time to figure out how you're going to fix this." They left the office with everyone still sitting there looking uncomfortable. In the hallway, students were starting to arrive for the day. Keisha saw a few of them staring, probably wondering why she was there in a sling with her mother. As they walked toward the exit, Devin appeared from around a corner. She looked surprised to see them. "Hey, how's your shoulder?" bruised and sprained. I'll be out for a few weeks. Keisha tried to smile but couldn't quite manage it. Good, I mean not good that you're hurt. Good that you're taking time away from this place. Devin glanced around, then lowered her voice. I got called into the principal's office yesterday after you left. They asked me a bunch of questions about what I saw, tried to make me say I wasn't sure, that maybe I was wrong. What did you tell them? The truth. That Brittany pushed you on purpose, and I saw it clearly. Devin shrugged. They didn't like that answer. But I'm not changing it just because it's inconvenient for them. Keisha's mom looked at Devin with something like gratitude. Thank you for speaking up. Not many people would. Yeah, well, someone had to. Devin turned back to Keisha. If you need anything while you're out, let me know. I can send you notes from classes or whatever. They exchanged numbers, and then Keisha and her mom left the building. In the car, her mom sat for a moment without starting the engine. That school is going to try to sweep this under the rug. You know that, right? Keisha nodded. She'd figured as much from the meeting, so we're not going to let them. Her mom pulled out her phone. I'm calling a lawyer, and I'm going to contact the local news. If Riverside High won't protect you, I'll make sure everyone knows why. Over the next few days, things started happening fast. Keisha's mom found a lawyer who specialized in discrimination and bullying cases. Mrs. Chen was a sharp woman who listened to everything Keisha had to say and took detailed notes. This is a clear case of racial harassment and assault, Mrs. Chen said after their first meeting. The school's failure to act makes them liable. We can file a formal complaint with the district and, if necessary, a lawsuit. I don't want money, Keisha said. I just want them to do something. Sometimes the threat of a lawsuit is what it takes to make institutions act, Mrs. Chen explained. But we'll start with the formal complaint. That puts everything on record. Meanwhile, Keisha's mom contacted a local news reporter who had covered education issues before. The reporter, Helen Park, was interested in the story. She came to their apartment with a camera crew. I want to be very clear, Helen said before they started. This story could help create change, but it will also make you more visible. Are you prepared for that? Keisha looked at her mom, then back at Helen. People already see me. They just don't care. Maybe if the story's out there, they'll have to care. The interview was hard. Keisha had to relive everything. Show the screenshots. Explain how it felt to be targeted day after day. Talk about the push that injured her shoulder. More than once, she had to stop and wipe away tears. Helen was kind but thorough. She asked tough questions. Did you ever fight back? Say anything to provoke them? No, I just wanted to be left alone. And the school's response when you tried to report things? They didn't believe me. Or they said it was just normal kid stuff. Nobody wanted to deal with it. After the interview, Helen explained that she'd reached out to the school for comment. Principal Hayes had declined to be interviewed but sent a statement saying the